Welcome to ULIC. Welcome to the second part of our evening. First of all, I just wanted to thank everyone for coming, and I wanted to give you a few details about the rest of the evening. So we'll have this session for about 45 minutes, and our six panelists will tell you a little bit about their businesses and what they would tell their 21-year-old self, and then we'll open it up for questions. And then there'll be a 15-minute break, and then there'll be the final part of the session this evening at 8 o'clock in the rooms A through D. It'll be a speed networking session. So if you want to talk to any of these entrepreneurs or the other entrepreneurs in more detail, that will be your opportunity to do so. Okay, so without further ado, I'll have our six panelists introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their business and what they would tell their 21-year-old self.
Let's start it off here. I'm Anita Mahaffey. I'm the founder of Cool Jams. I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur. This is not my first business. I started, I worked corporately in product management for quite a few years, and then after I had my second child, I decided enough. I need freedom. I need to do my own thing. I need to work my ideas. And I started my first business. It was in the textile business. It was a hand-knitted sweater business. That was kind of a flop. You learn from the flops. And then, anyway, I started a second business. I am still a partner in that. I'm a partner in a textile factory in Turkey. And the third business is a branded apparel line. It's a sleepwear and actually also bedding line, and we sell worldwide. It's a temperature regulating bedding. It was a fabric that we developed and specifically used in this product, and I'm proud to say that we got selected as one of the top innovative apparel companies by Apparel Magazine in 2013, and we've doubled our business every year since we started. And we started the year the economy started plummeting. So if you have a good idea, it doesn't matter. You can make it work. So what would I tell myself? I would tell my young self, I'm very old now, probably the oldest one on this panel, so we go back a lot of years here. I'd probably tell myself never burn a bridge, because the people you meet in life are priceless. And so often, like for example, for me, my first business was in Turkey. I was an exchange student in Turkey when I was 18 years old. So my past came to tap me on the shoulder in a big way. So I would say that everyone you meet in life, maybe they're just a friend, but they could potentially be a business contact or somebody that can help you in your future. And that would be my biggest bit of advice to you.
Great. So I'm going to keep the introduction short because I know you guys just saw that talk. So AJ Agrawal, co-founder and CEO of Alumnify. And so if I was going to start my business when I was 21, I do a couple of things. One, like I mentioned before, don't start creating like a pitch deck and a business plan, especially not a business plan, because nobody's going to use a business plan. Don't waste your time on it. We did it. Huge mistake. The other thing you should do, I'm being honest with you guys, the other thing you should do is go interview customers from the start. There's a huge thing called the Lean Startup Movement. If you guys don't know about it, definitely look it up and go talk to your customers to figure out what you should build. A huge mistake that we made early on is we spent all this money, outsourced and built a product, and then we found out nobody wanted it, and we wasted a huge amount of funds doing that. Go talk to customers and figure out what they're saying. And the third thing, and this is something Naveed, as my mentor, was big on us on, is build your company through revenue. So at the end of the day, you have all of these companies, you hear all this press about companies getting funded and all of those things, and one thing that we had to adjust was focusing on building a company on revenue. Go get sales. That's how you do a proof of concept. Nobody cares how great like a pitch deck is or those things like that. And if you do that, you'll have investors start calling you. And so much of starting a big company is that foundation that you build it in, finding out what you need to build and going out and selling. Hustlers will always be the best entrepreneurs, in my opinion, because they go out and make stuff happen. And then the final thing is, if I were you guys, I would definitely focus on recruiting great people while you're here at USD. That's how I found my co-founder. If you're building a tech company, I would go to the USD computer science department, find the best guy there, take him out for pizza, sell him, bring a contract, have it sign it, done, and he's on board. That's the best way to do it. Honestly, that's what I would do. And I think if you do those things and run extremely lean, save as much money as you can, and keep moving the business forward, that's what's going to separate you from the guy next to you who has a great idea and you who are going to start your business. So that'd be my advice.
Well, I don't need to say anything. No, that was, AJ made some great points. Naveed Alipour, I am co-founder at Analytics Ventures and founder of La Casa Investment Group, co-founded a couple of companies as well. Advice to myself, if I was 21, a couple of things. One, network like crazy. And to the first point made, you never know who is going to introduce you to who or who's going to help you. And along with that, give before you ask for something. So help other people. If I meet AJ and I know what he's doing and I can think of someone else I might be able to help him, might be a good advisor, might work at a university that might give him a client, I'll make that introduction and not expect anything back, and it comes back. So network and help others without expecting anything. Two, I would say learn how to sell. People think sell is a four-letter word. I don't care if you're an IP attorney or a hair transplant doctor or a software salesperson, whatever you are, you can't just sit there and expect things to come to you. You have to go out there and learn to communicate that and tell people that you are a really good IP attorney or you have a really good software, whatever it is. And along that line, you have to be a good storyteller, because all you're doing as CEO, the number one job of the CEO is to sell, and they have to tell a good story because they have to attract top talent. They have to attract the customers, attract investors. And AJ is a good example of someone who has been able to, and I've seen him pitch several times, and he's constantly adapting and doing that very well. So you tell a good story, and people want to help you, people want to give you business, and people want to invest.
My name is Jason Friend, founder of People's Bank Mortgage and also a co-founder at a newer company called Accelerate. To add to what Naveed said, obviously networking, knowing how to sell are super important things. So I just want to add a few things that I would tell myself, which is take risk. You know, at 21 years old, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have car payments. Well, maybe you have a car payment, but you don't have the responsibility of children and too much in life at that point. So the opportunity to take risk is huge, and it's the right time to take risk and be prepared to fail, and because failing's a great thing, and you learn a lot from it, and you learn what to do, what not to do, and so definitely take a risk. And also add to that, take advantage of every resource that you have. There are so many opportunities, whether it's, you know, at the university, and just in life in general, is take advantage of the resources, of the opportunities that are around you, and experience things. You know, at 21 years old, it's a time to figure out what you want to do, and figure out what you're interested in. Where you start isn't where you're going to end up, but it's a great time to just get out there, take a risk, experience things, and you know, good things happen from that.
My name is Stefan Arstal. My company is Tower Paddleboards. We got awarded the fastest growing company in San Diego this year, from 2011 to 2013. We were also on Shark Tank, and we got Mark Cuban to invest. What I would tell my 20-year-old self, I think there's a lot of good stuff here. I'll try to, I would recommend all that. I'll say something different. I don't know if this is the best. I would say, if I'm 21, I would say don't be in a rush. I think, because in the business media seems to really push it on. You know, you gotta start a business, and you know, by the time you're 26 or you know before you're 30, you've got to be a billionaire. I mean, that has to be the mentality kids have these days. And it's like most entrepreneurs start when they're 40, you know, because you've got to acquire this sort of, this basis of knowledge and this basis of a network before you can start a company. So don't be in a hurry. What I would do is I would say travel, you know, take a year off and go travel and do it cheaply. But travel, because the biggest thing you need as an entrepreneur, I think, is to expand your horizons, sort of expand your mind and the ideas that you could do. And a lot of ideas come from when you travel. You see different cultures, you see how they're doing something differently, and it can be as simple as taking one thing from this spot to another spot, and you can time travel 5 years, and you can make a business out of that. So expand your mind, travel is a good way to do it. And the second thing I would say is to really be concerned about your burn rate. And this is most young people think, well, they don't have experience, you know, they don't have money, but what you do have is you know how to live on nothing. Like as he was talking, sleep in the office, sleep on the floor. You can do that. Like if, you know, I went to, you know, start a business now and I said, well, I've got to sleep in my car. I'm like, oh, no way, you know, but you guys can wrap your head around that and you can live cheaply. But your burn rate just starts going up and up and up and up. And pretty soon you can't afford to start a business. And then you basically are sacrificing everything you want to do to, you know, cover the car, cover the house, and cover all the stupid stuff in life. So keep your burn rate low, expand your horizons.
Speaking of travel, I'm Jenny Gilchrist. I have a company called TravelBox.com. It's a friend-to-friend recommendation network for travel. I founded that with a good friend of mine and colleague of mine about 2 years ago, so we've been working away on that. Before then, I worked for a couple of national public relations firms and then started my own PR company about 8 years ago. So I've had a lot of experience in the entrepreneurial world, love working with entrepreneurs for a lot of my career. So I feel like I had a little bit of a crash course in seeing the ups and downs and entrepreneurs in a lot of different industries, which was extremely valuable. And so I think one of the things I learned just from watching other entrepreneurs and just if I could talk to myself at your guys' age, kind of what you were saying, but you know, everyone always says life is so short, life is short, do things now, and it's true, but I also think life is long, and you're going to have so many different opportunities to do so many different things, and the first thing you do, you know, 1 in a million people are going to be billionaires that one time. So I think just being okay with that and knowing that it's a journey and it's a process, and that's the beauty of it, that the mistakes are what are going to make you really great at something, whether it happens sooner or later. So just, you know, knowing and valuing those moments that are going to be major lessons and not so easy sometimes, that they're okay and that's part of the process. And then I would also say, you know, figure out what truly motivates you. I mean, if it's money, that's okay, but just, you know, get clear on that, because especially when you're starting a business, that's going to come through pretty quickly to an investor, whether you're truly passionate about what you're doing because of the idea or if it's a get-rich-quick kind of thing, which could be okay too. But it's just, you know, get clear on that and be okay with it and commit to it. So that's what I would say.
Thank you all, you know, for your insight. Hopefully you all have some questions now. So this is your opportunity to address any of the panelists or the panelists as a whole. Any burning questions you have regarding entrepreneurship or challenges, you know, feel free to raise your hand. If not, I'll ask a question. Any questions? Yeah.
I have a question. I know some of you guys started like with partners and or like co-founders. I know like I'm in college right now and like you meet tons of great people and stuff. Like, how do you find like that one person that like who knows like the right person to start your like company with? Like I just have like a really hard time like thinking about like how to do that. Like, you know, I know tons of people, but
I've had a number of different partners throughout my career. Whether my brother and I have been partners, we've been the constant. We've had third parties that we've partnered up with, and they've always provided something of value, right? Whether it was typically it had been capital, but it might be some other type of platform to do business on. So I would pick a partner based on the value that they bring, right? If it's someone that you enjoy hanging out with, then just hang out with them. But if somebody has value and they can actually bring something to whatever enterprise you're starting, that's who I would choose. You know, if they're not bringing any value, I would not partner with them.
I would add a little bit to that. Also, that's a really good point. But I would also say that find someone, you know, you have certain skills. So let's say you're an accountant. Find a person that does things that you don't do well at. Something that is, you know, different than your skill set, because that can really complement you in that regard.
I think you should ask yourself, why do you need a partner? I would say don't get a partner.
Good point.
That should be your default. I don't need a partner.
Yeah.
And then, but you can only do some businesses if you have a partner. Then go find one. But partners may sound good, like you have company along this thing, but there's a lot of challenges. I mean, it's like a marriage, and 60% of those go bad, right? Same thing in business. I mean, I've got a billionaire as a partner. There's a lot of upsides, but there's a lot of downsides too. See them both.
That's a really good point, depending on, what type of business you're having, because that applies for some. And then if, let's say, you're dealing with a technology business or software business, you can't be the CEO and the CTO. I've seen so many examples where, that founder wants to try to keep all the equity themselves and tries to do it all, and you can't scale that. You want to surround yourself with really, really smart people, and that are better at what they do. So if you're going to be the technology person, then hire a CEO. If you're the CEO, hire a good CTO. There's really three things I think that are important, at least in the technology type businesses. If you're going to do a startup,
Yeah,
is
I understand like the technology
so. Whether you're the receptionist or the CTO or the CEO, there's someone that fit in three boxes. They have to either help sell, help build the technology, or help bring capital in while the technology is being built and the sales is being ramped up. So if you could fit people into those three boxes, that's who you want to find to complement you.
I would just say one more thing to that. I agree with you guys. I have a co-founder, and I've had a partner before. Then that one didn't work out at all. We were friends, and I thought, oh, this will be fun. We have so much in common. We, share the same interests. We're both good at what we do, and it was a disaster. Obviously, I was very naive. So I would just, I think one thing that I did this time around, and it's already proven to help out a lot, is that we had the really difficult discussions early on and said, well, what if this happens? Worst case scenario, what if this happens? What are we going to do? What if this happens? What if, I want out? What if you want out? What's going to constitute us wanting to quit? Are we ever going to quit? Those types of questions you want to kind of flesh out and maybe get in some arguments early on and figure out, how does this person argue? How does this person deal with conflict? And then decide what you want to do. Because it's like a marriage. And you're going to be with them a lot through ups and downs, so. Good question.
Yeah, sorry. Hi, I'm Michelle. I guess I should just start off with the background before I ask the question. But I have an idea for a dental product, and I went to my cousin who's a dentist, and she's like, "No, that would never happen." Have you ever had that experience where someone totally shut you down, and how did you ever overcome that?
If I could add one thing to that, I can't address the question directly the way you want. Someone else might be able to do it better. And I'm not in life science or medical device, but I was at a panel once, and someone asked the panelists, do you need to have a life science background to start a life science company or a biotech company or a med device? And the panelist, and I fail to remember his name, but he was a very successful entrepreneur. He started a med device company that IPO'd. And he said, you actually sometimes want people that are not from the industry because they think outside the box. So your dentist friend or family member, they've been taught this is how it is, nothing else works. So it takes a little bit of ignorance to change things the way they are.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. When I look at our industry, I actually don't look at the industry. I don't go to the trade shows. I look at other higher tech industries and say, what can I port over to this industry? Mm-hmm. And if you do look at your industry, I think you lose that creativity. And with this this dentist, there may be a valid thing behind that too, but you just got to ask 20 people, and then all of them tell you it's stupid. Well, then only do it if you really know it's going to work. But I wouldn't be discouraged by that.
Yeah, and I would say, if I were you, I'd treat it like an opportunity. That's what I've done, because when you go out and raise capital, you're going to have tons of investors and people tell you how bad your idea is. I think the important thing that I learned is it's important to ask why. And if you go in and you're really defensive about your concept, then you're not really going to learn anything. So when we have meetings with mentors and advisors, I actually like the advisors, and the advisors that are best for our company are the ones who really push me and disagree with me, because then I can sit down and say, okay, why do you feel that way? And having that person who constantly disagrees with you is actually a positive. So if I were you, I'd speak to that person and say, why is that so? Why do you think that? Keep asking, like was said before, and then iterate. Because I think if you go in thinking that your idea is golden, then that's a huge disadvantage going forth. It's why so many entrepreneurs today won't share their ideas. That makes no sense whatsoever to me. the best way to build up your company is to share your idea with every single person that you can. Because the chances that I tell Naveed my idea and he does it, I mean, it's not very likely, right? There's so many other things going on that you should be really open to feedback, and then learn as much as you can, and then iterate, I'd say.
We could build the technology pretty quick.
Well, I shouldn't have said that, so. Yeah.
No, he's right. It's so rare. I mean, you want to tell everyone your story, actually. Some people are like, oh, sign an NDA. And it just shows how naive you are if you ask investors or people to do that. Unless, like, you're showing them your secret algorithm. Like, there's a certain point that, okay, you need an NDA. But when you're trying to communicate to investors and team members, and you want to tell the world, because one person might not like it, but then they'll say, well, I don't like this, but I know this other guy or gal that might need to talk to AJ. So
I was just going to say that, you know, when you do a focus group, you know, you usually do research before you start a business or you have an idea, and it would never be one person, kind of along with what he said. You know, you really ask 20 people, and my husband is a dentist, so I can give you my card and have you talk to him.
That's great.
Because, you know, he's really open to, you know, talking to young people. So, yeah, you're welcome.
There's a question over there, I think.
Yes, kind of to piggyback that question. So we have some graduate students in the room, and maybe people that have already started their own company or in that growth phase. How do you guys personally balance the, I don't know if it's a want or a need to pivot versus the want or need to sort of stay the course? So I mean, I would imagine all of you have dealt with a circumstance maybe to that point where it's like, oh shit, now I need a new idea. You know, I need to pivot right away. Versus like, no, I really need to kind of stick to my strategy and stick to my core function. You guys, can you talk to that at all?
You know, I can't really address exactly the pivot and the change of direction and a way that the business is running, but something that follows along those lines is whether to grow or not, right? You know, I think in the last year, my partner and I have said we either have to get a really good golf game or we need to grow, because we've been doing what we've been doing for a while. It works, it runs, you know, we've got good management in place, but we were bored. And so we've, you know, started reinvesting, getting other projects, trying to grow the business. But there just comes, you know, certain points in time that, you know, that the urge to do something different strikes you. And when it does, you know, take advantage of it if you can.
Yeah, I don't think this addresses the pivot. I think that's more in technology where he's talking like the iterations. If that's what you're talking about, this won't address it. But the idea of you know, businesses, like the life cycle of businesses is much shorter today than it was 15 years ago. I mean, 15 years ago, if you looked at, I think I saw numbers on like the S&P 500 or whatever, the average age of a business on there was like 50 years. That's how old a business was. Now it's 16. So businesses come and go, and there's a lot more turnover. So you could have a great business today and it'll be gone tomorrow. I mean, look like Friendster or something like that. It's crazy, the cycle. And I think that's because, you know, information like flows around the world easier. It's also easier to knock stuff off and copy it. I mean, you can come out with a product in the spring, and by fall, that product is knocked off already. So you have to move faster. Like in my business, the paddleboard business, it's sort of this, you know, trend business that is sort of going up and up and up, but I know at some point it's going to crest and then come back down. I've had a poker chip business before, did the same thing. And that poker chip business, like, it was dying, right? And I was almost looking for a job when I started the paddleboard business. So it's, you know, I'm very paranoid about that happening now. So I think, but that's the tricky question, is at what point do you start looking at a bunch of things? Because if you don't focus, you're not going to be very successful in that one thing. And this is what Cuban is really, you know, driven into me, is, you know, keep focus on this stuff. But I think you can start to look around once you've, like he was saying, once you've freed up time and you're like, you know, that's you should get the business automated to a degree that you have some free time. And as soon as you have that free time, don't go golf. Use that to figure out how to, you know, reduce your risks of, you know, either another way to leverage this business or, you know, even start another business. So.
you have to be forward focused because, as you mentioned, businesses change. I know it for ourselves in our industry. I think in 5 to 7 years, everything will be completely automated. And so, you look out there and say, okay, how can we get ahead of that curve? How can we get ahead of that so that 5 years from now, we still have a business to run. So you always have to continue to look forward and see what's going on around you and see how you can adapt to it.
I would just say I think one of the very common characteristics of entrepreneurs is being impatient. And for us, at least, we've been working on our mobile app, and it's not necessarily a need, but it was more of a want that we keep on layering all these cool features and all these, changing the design. Let's do it this way. Wouldn't it look cool if we did this? And we get so caught up in it because we've been looking at it for 6 months, and it's old news to us, but yet no one's seen it yet. So it's kind of doing that self-check, like, wait a minute, let's just stay focused, let's just get this build done, let's put it out there, and then we can move on to phase 2. So it's self-editing. We've had to do a lot of self-editing just because we're impatient and because we're already, 3 steps ahead of what we want it to do eventually. So I think that's just part of the deal, especially when you're doing a tech-related product. But
I would add a little bit. I would say that you should never be so in love with your idea that you can't switch, switch gears or switch in a different direction. You can have this fabulous idea, but when you're banging your head against the wall too much, I mean, I'm not talking about sleeping in your car, like, you do have to do a bit of that, but at some point, don't be, I mean, sometimes you just have to call an ace a spade, and switch gears. And on the other hand, you need to, I believe that you always should have that next thing in your back pocket. I keep a list of that next idea. I don't believe in being complacent. I think that where this idea came from, there's dozens more, and keep a notebook. When the product cycle starts going down, you want that next idea. You want it there. So just keep a notebook, keep track of, that inspiration that came to you in the shower or whatever. And because that might be the next thing that your business, the next new direction that you go in. So
if I could add something to the last 2 points, which I agree with 100%. Don't be complacent and have the, plan A and B and C. And also when it comes to software and app, it's never done. Software is never finished. It could always be better. You can always change it. So if you just got to get it out there and see if people pay for it. So try to get that low-hanging fruit. Try to see what can I build that someone will take their credit card out and run it and pay me. And if they don't, then you pivot. Then you make some changes. So if people pay you, there's a value. If not, you should change it.
One other add to that is I don't think you should look at like a business like going from zero to wherever it's going to go, and then does it fail or whatever? Because I mean, you're a person. You're going to do like several jobs. Most of you are going to have 7 jobs or whatever they say. You're going to have 7 businesses too. And if you look at businesses, the first one is really tough, right? To make that first $1 million, that's going to be extraordinarily tough. A lot of people are never going to get there. But once you get there, it opens up an entire new world of opportunity. So you want to then, assess the world, assess your assets that you have, and the people you know, and do the second business that goes to 10 million and then to 100 million. So I think you really want to keep that conscious. It's like I don't have to start from zero again, and this is just I'm building plateaus.
And I think too, especially when it comes to technology, that people always try to go for these huge markets. Like when they see things like Facebook, like we're going to go out and build an application that everybody in the world is going to use, and so everybody's developing a mobile application now. So one thing that we actually did is, technically, we're an alumni engagement company, but when we sell, we say we engage your recent graduates. So now that market's much smaller, right? So if you're thinking about starting a company, one of the things I would say before you decide to pivot is don't be afraid to attack a small market that can grow into a bigger market. And what we've learned and kind of what we've discovered is that it's great to dominate a small market and then expand outwards. And so many people, like when they switch their businesses, they focus too much. And one of the worst things you can say to an investor that we learned is, if we only get 0.01% of this market, we're going to be billionaires. It's really dumb to say. Instead, if you just focus on like what we're doing now is just saying recent graduates, that's our market, then one, that differentiates us, and two, if we figure out that pain point and solve that, then there's so many more opportunities to expand. So kind of like what you were saying, you're not going to build a $1 billion company overnight, and a lot of companies that get there make iterations and pivots to their product. It's better for you to focus on a small market, dominate that, and expand, in my opinion.
Awesome. Thank you.
Other questions?
Hi. Cody Cross, recent graduate of USD. My question is, well, a lot of people say that cash is king, and it's very important, like you said, to get revenue as quickly as possible. But there is also a mentality that users are very valuable. And so in growing, there sometimes is an opportunity to greatly grow your user base while giving up some of that revenue. So what would you say in terms of having that balance or going one way or the other?
Are you talking about an app?
Primarily, in the technology space.
Yeah. My son started a tech company, and that was exactly his strategy. He gave up revenue for users. They gave away the app free so that they could generate users, and then you transform the users to that is one strategy. I don't know if it's the best strategy. They're doing phenomenally well, but so take it for what it is.
From what I recall, your son's company is up in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, he's got a company called Lookout, and it's a mobile security company. And they've gotten about 5 or 6 rounds of venture capital, and you might even have it on your cell phone. So so they've done really, really well, and so that was their strategy.
I think if you're a B2C company, it's all about 2 metrics: monthly active users and daily active users, right? How many people are on your app every single day, and how many monthly? Because then the more you have, the better you can monetize that. And there's going to be a way where you charge them. Another is you give it away for free and you have advertising or what have you. So it depends what your model is. And also, I think geography does play a role in it, because if you're out trying to raise money and you're in Silicon Valley, it's really easy. If you have something good and you say, we're giving it away for free, but look at our monthly active users. You have to have it. If you don't have it, it's still, you won't raise money still. But in San Diego, it's a little harder, especially for B2C companies, because people are going to say, well, so what if you have 300,000 users? What's your revenue?
Yeah.
So. And having the plan and idea of how exactly you will monetize those users is key.
If you're a consumer goods company, you wouldn't use that model at all. I need to sell pajamas. I sell a solution for people. I need revenue, so it wouldn't work for me just to have people visiting my site, and
Well, I'll give you a low-tech solution or
yeah.
thing. So we're a paddleboard company, right? And so we've grown from 0 to 5 million in sales selling paddleboards, and that's what we are squarely focused on now. And we're at that point where we're going to pivot. Is our growth going to slow? What's going to happen? So what we've done is we had 4 people in the company, and so the last 3 hires have been a filmmaker, a full-time writer, and the other person. Oh, he was just somebody to help in the warehouse. But basically, we're going from being a paddleboard company to creating an online magazine. And this is all about going from a monetization strategy of a product, where you make a product and then you go out and you try and find people to buy that product, to what I think is a much more advanced business model, where you assemble an audience and then you create products for that audience. And a lot of the world is going this way. With social media, and it's kind of similar to the idea of apps. Those users or those eyeballs you can monetize those. So there is money there in the form of free marketing, right? So and if you build that, it's really easy to build those users right now with like Facebook marketing and stuff. It's really, really cheap, and people are accessible. So I think you can kind of do both, but the cash is certainly king. Like if you don't have cash flow, I don't live in the Silicon Valley world where somebody's going to give me money for my business. It's if you don't make that money, you're out of business. So you gotta solve that one first, unless you have the ability or the people that can raise money.
Other questions anyone has? All right. So if if you guys could address maybe one of your biggest challenges and how did you overcome it during your entrepreneurial journey?
I gotta think about that one. Oh, there's so many.
The first one that comes to mind.
Oh boy. Okay, so here's, let's see, the most recent business, I would say, do your research when you hire contractors. I started this pajama business, like I mentioned before, it was my third business, and you think that you know a lot, but you always have more to learn. I didn't do a lot of research regarding a warehouse, and I just, went online and I found this one that was mid-country, and they looked good, and I should have known better, but pretty soon, I realized that they were just awful. I think the guy was on drugs that owned this warehouse. So I literally had to pay, thousands of dollars to ship all my merchandise from Colorado to a new warehouse in St. Louis. And we're talking, inventory of like $500,000 worth of pajamas, and to truck that from one warehouse. Oh, and then of course there was a tornado at the first warehouse. So it was like the comedy of errors. The guy was on drugs, there's a tornado, and half my merchandise is destroyed, everything's, and anyway, long story short, do your research about, vendors and people that you use and get references. I think, that was definitely a challenge. So yeah, I spent a lot of money to move it to a really good warehouse in St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm very happy now. We've been there for 5 years, so knock on wood. Yeah, so that's one challenge, but I'll let someone, I'm sure there's many more.
Yeah, I would say for me, I think the biggest challenges right now is definitely how my role in our company has changed. And so when you start a company, it's usually you or maybe a couple of friends, and you're basically doing everything. And as the company's grown, I found out that my responsibilities have changed, especially if you're going to go out and raise capital. You're going to have to learn so much about the valuation of your company, what investors look for, pre-money, post-money discussions. There's just so much that goes into that. As a CEO, a lot of that you're going to have to deal with. In the early stages, we had a couple hundreds of dollars, and so that's what you manage. Now you go to managing a lot more money, and you have to be responsible for that. And the other thing that we've come across now is now we have about 7 people who are working together, and company culture all of a sudden becomes a big thing. You have to deal with people who are not working for a lot of money or working for no money, and you have to constantly keep them motivated. I think one of the things I wish people would have told me now is how to go about like firing people. Like I didn't know how to do that, or we've had to let people go, and there's certain things where they tell you, it's usually people never say I fired that person too early. They say I fired them too late. And so those are the things that I'm going through now, and there's so much that you have to focus on. But I think that's one of the best parts about being an entrepreneur too. Like, I was a finance major, and we did, projections, all those things. But once you do it for your own company, you learn them like this, and because you're forced to. And so I think the changes in your roles is one of the biggest challenges that I'm personally going through, but it's also taught me a ton about how to run a company as it's growing. So.
No, that's a really good point in regard to companies growing and their different stages. Just like a kid. A kid's a baby, they need certain things. They're 4 years old, they need something else. High school, something different, and different people need to come into play, whether it's just a babysitter or a college professor. And that kind of leads into what I'd say is the biggest constant challenge is managing expectations, whether it's the expectations of team members, of investors, of co-investors, partners. If expectations aren't met, that's where you have problems, and that's where people aren't happy. So you have to manage your own expectations and also try to communicate as clearly with others and be transparent and try to see where they're coming from, so that everyone kind of knows what is expected of them and of their partners and team and so forth. So it's on one thing like a tornado, but it's managing expectations.
Yeah.
I think something that doesn't get talked about often is managing emotions. Assuming you've got a good product and you've sussed it all out and you've got something that you think is viable, is overcoming that fear, right? Having that faith to actually take this next step and do it. You know, faith in yourself, getting other people to have faith in your vision is an important thing. You have to manage the emotion, and if you really feel like you've got something, to have that faith and take that next step.
I think the biggest challenge for me has been employees. As an entrepreneur, sometimes you're really good at certain stuff, and you're good at figuring out what opportunities and how to take advantage of those opportunities and doing the financials or whatever. But ultimately, if the business takes off, you're going to need to hire people, right? In my first business, I didn't have anybody, so it was just a one-man show, very easy. I could boil that business down to about 12 hours a week, and it just ran automatically. But it only scaled up to a certain level. Now in this business, okay, now I have to scale up. And we ran very lean on people. We had like 4 or 5 people. Now we've got 8. But you don't have an HR person in that company, okay? And as the sort of the founder of the company, that's you, and you want it to be you. And I've actually been pretty fortunate to be able to attract really good people, but I've had to fire a couple people. I've had another girl that was really, really good quit. And so you got to learn how to, motivate those people to keep them there. Make sure you don't get anybody sort of bad on your team that sort of poisons the culture. It's a tricky thing, so that's challenging.
I would say a couple things. One is time management. For us, a strength for us so far has been our network and the resources that we've been able to get through friends that we meet and other companies that are interested in possibly collaborating with us. But at the same time, that's a major time suck. And when you're so excited about your idea and you want to talk to people about it, you want to go to lunch with them, or you want to go to drinks with them, you want to talk about your ideas and get their feedback and all of that, that adds up. So I would just say, I've learned to be really careful about the meetings I take. I mean, I definitely still take meetings because you never know where opportunities are going to come from, but just being really careful about how much time you spend and just being aware of how often you're doing that. And then the other thing, it goes back to your role in the company, because it's always going to be changing. And with me, I have a co-founder, so in the beginning, we were both full steam ahead, but there's ebbs and flows. It's sometimes she's just going to have to be working way later just because that's what the project she's working on, she's managing our developers. That's not something that I should even touch because it's not my expertise. But, there's always going to be those ups and downs where you're trying to figure out how's your role changing, but how is your partner's role changing also? And that can be kind of tricky and definitely a challenge. But
all right, we're about out of time, but maybe to end on a positive note, any final takeaways that you have for budding entrepreneurs in the room?
I think the best part about being an entrepreneur is you're never going to be at work like watching the clock. Suddenly your life goes from just, oh my God, it's like 6 o'clock already. I need to get out of here. And so that's one of the benefits that, time flies.
There's definitely no work-life balance. You better enjoy what you're doing. So.
Yeah.
All right. I guess with that, so thank you all for your insight. Why don't we do a round of applause? All right. So we're going to have a 15-minute break. You can go back to the rotunda if you'd like. And then at 8 o'clock, there'll be speed networking. So it'll be your opportunity to speak to any of these entrepreneurs or the other entrepreneurs in the program in more detail. So that will be from 8 to 8:45, and there'll be final remarks at 9. And the room is over there. It's A through D, so just long here. All right, thank you.